She stood still in the elevator, watching the digital numbers glow upward. 9, 10, 11. No music, just breath. Behind her, someone cleared their throat. A sharp click of heels echoed. But Maya didn't flinch. She'd learned to take up just enough space, not too much, not too little. Enough to be useful, but not threatening. And yet, they still looked at her like she'd worn something loud. All she had on was a navy blouse and patience. This is the story of a woman who was never hired to lead but ended up rewriting the room. She didn't do it with shouting. She didn't do it with rebellion. She did it with restraint, with clarity, with silent power. And the world noticed too late to stop her. If you've ever felt invisible in plain sight, if you've ever had your brilliance repackaged in someone else's mouth, or if you've ever carried the weight of being the only black woman in the room, this story was made for you. Before we begin, do something powerful in return. Like this video if you've ever built in silence. Subscribe if you believe stories like Maya's deserve the mic. And share it with one person who needs to remember that their calm is not weakness, it's strategy. Now breathe with her. The elevator dings. The doors slide open. Floor 12 glossy, bright. The kind of office where titles hang heavier than truth. Maya steps out. She knows her name is not in the slide deck. She knows the celebration isn't for her. But she also knows what they don't. You don't have to be invited to change the temperature of a room. And in this particular room, the temperature is about to shift. The moment she stepped into the building, Maya knew something had shifted. The lobby of Crosswell and Blythe buzzed with its usual manicured hum, the scent of lavender diffuser oil and recycled ambition. But beneath it, she sensed the weight of news not yet spoken, the kind of tension that lives between tight smiles and side glances. She adjusted her coat, shook off the late autumn drizzle clinging to her shoulders, and stepped into the elevator. Floor 18. As the numbers lit up one by one, her reflection wavered in the mirrored wall, a dark-skinned woman in a navy blouse and burgundy slacks, lips set with intention, eyes unblinking. When the doors slid open, the silence hit first. Not total quiet, there were phones ringing, keyboards tapping, but a studied hush, like the room had collectively agreed to lower its voice. Maya walked past the open-plan desks. She heard Ethan's laugh before she saw him, that easy, unbothered chuckle that carried just a bit too far across the office. His tie was crooked again. Someone had already brought him a congratulatory muffin. Her pulse slowed, not out of calm but out of recognition. She reached the company bulletin board outside the glass conference room. A single sheet of paper had been posted, framed by two magnets shaped like sun's irony. She noted absently. At the top, bold letters, Strategic Growth, Leadership Selection. 10 names, each typed neatly. Her name wasn't there. But Ethan Reynolds number 3. She read it again, slowly this time, as if the act of reading would rewrite reality. No, still not there. Lisa from HR appeared beside her like an apparition. She wore a beige blazer and the kind of smile you offer a grieving acquaintance at a wedding. Just remember, these decisions aren't always reflective of effort. Keep doing what you're doing. Your time will come. Maya turned her head slowly, gave her a look so still, so measured, that Lisa blinked. Twice. She said nothing. Not because she couldn't, but because some silences are built from centuries. She turned away from the board and walked back to her desk, heels clicking in tempo with her thoughts. She sat, logged in, and typed her password with fingers steadier than she felt. All around her, the office carried on, white teeth flashing, emails pinging, the language of the successful and oblivious. But Maya sat like stone. And though no one saw it, a door inside her quietly closed, and something else older, deeper began to wake. He didn't stand when she entered. Caldwell Bartlett sat behind his smoked glass desk, fingers steepled beneath his chin like he was modeling for a stock photo titled Trustworthy Executive. He gestured toward the seat across from him. Maya, come in. Thanks for making the time. She didn't answer, just sat, back straight, legs crossed at the ankle the way her grandmother once taught her. Sit like every inch of you matters. Because it does. Caldwell exhaled through his nose. That tone was coming the preamble before the denial. You know we've been watching your progress closely. You've handled some tough accounts with real poise. Here it comes, the compliment sandwich, burnt at the edges. But, he said, placing exaggerated weight on the word, we've decided to go with someone else for the strategic growth lead role. Maya didn't blink, didn't flinch, let the silence stretch. He shifted in his chair. It's not a reflection of your capabilities, he added quickly. You're incredibly competent, but we're looking for someone who really fits with our leadership culture. There it was, that phrase again. Culture fit. A phrase soaked in perfume to hide the stench of bias. What it really meant was too confident, too direct, too black. She stared at him, unblinking. If he'd hoped for an emotional response, indignation, tears, protest, he'd miscalculated. He cleared his throat, flustered by her calm. You know, he said, reaching for something softer. You've got real presence. People listen when you speak. But sometimes, maybe, it comes off a bit strong. There it was again. The translation of 1,000 HR-approved microaggressions. Don't be so assertive. Don't make people uncomfortable. Shrink. Smooth your edges. Be palatable. Maya leaned back slightly, hands folded in her lap. She didn't defend herself. Didn't pull out the numbers, the client retention rates she had doubled, the cross-department teams she'd held together with invisible glue. She'd done that before, presented evidence, stated her case, and still, the outcome had been the same. So this time, she gave him something rarer. Nothing. No rebuttal. No attempt to win him over. Just that look, quiet, piercing, the kind that makes people rethink their tone in the days that follow. Then she stood, smoothed her slacks, nodded once. Thank you for the clarity. And as she walked out of the office head high, shoulders loose, Caldwell blinked, as if he'd just missed something important. He had. Because Maya didn't leave defeated. She left, calculating. The balloons were gold. Someone had taped them to the glass wall of the main conference room, each one reflecting the midday light like applause frozen midair. There was cake, too white frosting, piped blue lettering. Congratulations, Ethan. Maya stood at the back of the room, her paper plate balanced in one hand. She hadn't touched the cake. Too sweet. Too loud. Too undeserved. Ethan stood near the center, laughing with his tie loosened and his confidence swelling like a balloon about to pop. His hand was on Caldwell's shoulder, and their bodies angled toward one another with the ease of men who'd never had to second-guess their belonging. Someone passed Maya with a plastic cup of sparkling cider and said, "You're next, girl. Keep grinding." She smiled. The kind that didn't reach her eyes. The kind worn like armor. Keep grinding, as if she were a gear, a machine, not a person who had bled invisible labor into every project without needing fanfare. Across the room, Anya, the new intern, caught her gaze and gave a small nod, nervous and sincere. Maya returned it with a softer smile, one just for her. In the corner, two analysts whispered, eyes flicking toward Maya, then away. She could read their lips even without hearing. She looks calm. She always does. Yes, she did. Because Maya had learned long ago they watch you more closely when you're black. Every reaction is measured. Every expression weighed. So she mastered the art of serenity, of internal storms hidden beneath perfect posture. She clapped when the toast was made. She nodded when Ethan thanked the team, even when he mentioned names she had mentored without mentioning hers. And when it was over, and the cake was cut, and the air began to settle, Maya slipped away. Back to her desk, back to her silence. But this time, it wasn't submission. It was strategy. She opened her notebook and wrote nothing at first. Then, let them celebrate. I'm building something deeper. Not louder, not flashier, but undeniable. Because Maya understood what they didn't. The most dangerous kind of power is the one that doesn't ask to be seen. The office was still dark when Maya arrived. 7:21 a.m. The automatic lights flickered reluctantly to life as she stepped in, casting long shadows between empty cubicles and polished floors. The smell of lemon-scented cleaner still clung to the air, like the ghosts of late-night janitors refusing to vanish. Maya set her coffee down, not from the artisanal shop downstairs, but brewed at home, strong and steady. Like her. She pulled off her coat, hung it on the back of her chair, and opened her laptop with a soft click. Her fingers moved without hesitation. She already knew what needed fixing before the system even loaded. There was a spreadsheet Ethan had butchered again. He'd presented it yesterday, numbers off by decimal points, client codes mismatched, projections bloated like promises on a campaign trail. No one had caught it. Except Maya, because Maya always caught it. She didn't correct him in the meeting. That would have been too aggressive. Instead, she stayed behind after everyone left, made the edits herself, resent the file with a subject line that read, "Just a few cleanups for alignment." No one replied. But this morning, she saw it. The updated version, her version projected on the firm-wide dashboard. Beneath it, "Thanks, Ethan." She didn't blink. She'd grown calluses where recognition should have lived. At 8:03, someone knocked gently on her cubicle wall. Anya, the intern, clutching 2 reports and wearing that look, the one that said, "I'm scared to ask, but I don't trust anyone else." "I wasn't sure how to format the vendor analysis for tomorrow's review," she said. Maya didn't sigh, didn't make her feel small. She just turned her chair. "Let's walk through it." They spent 20 minutes together. Maya guided her through pivot tables and category breakdowns like she was teaching a language no one else in the office bothered to translate. No one asked Maya to train Anya. No one would remember she had. But if Anya excelled, someone else would be applauded for leading a strong intern cohort. This was how it worked. At 9:12, emails began to pour in. Meetings booked. Clients forwarded just a quick question. Ethan's name was CC'd. He wouldn't respond until after his second coffee. Maya responded immediately. By 9:45, the office was full, voices rising, phones buzzing. Maya sat in the eye of it still, alert, invisible. She wasn't a martyr. She wasn't a saint. She was a black woman in corporate America. And her excellence was expected. Her exhaustion was ignored. But Maya wasn't bitter. She was recording every name, every silence, every favor misattributed. And one day, when the time was right, she wouldn't need revenge. She'd already have the receipts. It was supposed to be a touch base. 10 minutes on the calendar. Subject line: Quick Sync Leadership Trajectory. But Maya had been in corporate long enough to read between bullet points. She walked into the small side conference room, knowing exactly what this was. Lisa from HR sat waiting. Her smile came with edges. The kind that says, "I'm here to help," but really means, "I've already decided who you are." "Thanks for meeting with me," Lisa began. "I just wanted to check in. You've been doing amazing work." The pause after doing was barely a breath, but Maya heard it. Lisa leaned in. "You're so professional. Always so polished." Maya nodded once, carefully. Compliments like these were minefields. "You bring such presence," Lisa continued, "but sometimes that can be intimidating." There it was. Intimidating. The adjective reserved for black women who didn't apologize for being excellent, who didn't over-explain, who knew what they were doing and didn't flinch while doing it. Lisa tried to soften it. "I mean, people admire you, but we've had some feedback that you come across a little closed off, maybe just a touch hard to approach." Maya tilted her head, gently, as if trying to hear better not the words, but the subtext. Too confident, too articulate, too much like a threat in a dress. Lisa filled the silence. "Have you ever considered mentoring more junior associates? It might help balance your image." Show that warmer side? Maya smiled then, but it wasn't the kind Lisa wanted. It was the kind that said, "You think I haven't already been carrying them quietly without pay?" She could have spoken, could have listed the names, could have printed the dozens of times she'd stayed late to help others prepare decks, fix models, rehearse their first client pitches. Instead, she just said, "Thanks for the suggestion. I'll take that under consideration." Because she knew the rules. Defensiveness would be used against her. Disagreement would be labeled difficult. Silence, though silence was unquantifiable. Lisa beamed, thinking she'd done something, that she'd reached her. Maya stood, smoothed the creases in her trousers, and left the room like nothing had been scratched. But inside, she filed it away. Another feather on the scale. Another microblade slipped into the language of care. They wanted her softer, smaller, dimmer. But Maya was done negotiating with that voice. The next time they tried to repackage her excellence as a liability, she'd hand them their discomfort. Neatly folded, unapologetically returned. The meeting room smelled like catered ambition Caesar wraps, lemon water, and a plate of untouched gluten-free cookies. Maya sat at the end of the polished oak table, her notepad open, pen in hand. She wasn't taking notes. Not really. She already knew how this would go. It had happened before, and she had the pattern memorized like a hymn. Caldwell stood at the front of the room. "Today, we're brainstorming ideas for next quarter's client engagement strategy." He turned toward the whiteboard, marker in hand. "Let's open it up." Maya waited. 3 months ago, she'd proposed a strategy rotating client leads for deeper cross-functional engagement. It had been thoughtful, data-backed, and quietly innovative. Caldwell dismissed it as too ambitious, for Q2 said they didn't have the bandwidth. But now Ethan raised his hand, half laughing. "What if," he said, "we had the client leads rotate more often? Like, spread the trust. You know." Laughter rippled. Caldwell turned, nodding slowly. "Interesting. Build redundancy. Deepen trust across teams. That's sharp." Maya didn't move. The phrase Ethan had just used, "spread the trust," was eerily similar to what she'd written in her original proposal, word for word, almost. But this time, it landed, because it came from a voice the room was already tuned into. Caldwell wrote it down on the board in capital letters. Ethan leaned back in his chair, pleased. Around the table, heads nodded. One woman scribbled the idea into her notes, as if it had arrived from the sky. No one looked at Maya. She didn't remind them. Didn't say, "That was mine." Didn't dig through her email archive to prove authorship. Didn't perform the emotional labor of making herself visible. Because she knew how that story ended. The moment a black woman asserts herself, the room shifts. Praise curdles. She becomes territorial, hard to work with, too focused on credit. So Maya sat still. But inside, something settled, not defeat, but clarity. This was not forgetfulness. This was design. They weren't just failing to hear her. They were choosing whose voices counted. And that kind of exclusion wasn't accidental. It was cultural. Later, as the meeting broke up, someone clapped Ethan on the back. "Man, that idea's gold. You should run with it." Maya walked past them on her way out. No one stopped her. No one said, "Didn't you suggest this?" She didn't need them to. She knew. And that knowing, that sharp, quiet knowing, was its own kind of weapon. Polished, sheathed, waiting. By Monday, the cracks began to show. Small ones at first, like faint lines across fine china. Hairline fractures that only reveal themselves when heat is applied. The heat, in this case, was the Barnes & Hill account. One of their biggest legacy clients. One that Maya had quietly managed for nearly 3 fiscal cycles without missing a single delivery date. But now, Barnes & Hill had been reassigned under Ethan's name. He'd asked Maya for a quick download the week prior. She gave him a clean, comprehensive transition file, clear dates, client preferences, even warning signs he might miss. He skimmed it, smiled. Appreciate it. Maya, I'll take it from here. And she let him. That Monday morning, she sat at her desk and watched the storm begin from a distance. At 8:47 a.m., Barnes & Hill's junior liaison emailed confused about a calendar invite that didn't match their internal schedule. Ethan replied with a one-line response. Should be all good. Just roll with the new timeline. At 9:22 a.m., their senior partner followed up CCing leadership. Maya sipped her coffee, replied to a different thread, made no motion toward rescue. By 11:10 a.m., Ethan stood outside her cubicle. Hey, just a quick thing. Do you remember if Barnes & Hill needed the deck in PPT or Google Slides? She looked up, slowly. It's in the transition doc. Yeah, he said, rubbing his neck. Just thought you might remember offhand. She blinked. Nope. Silence. Then she turned back to her screen. Ethan hovered a second longer, like he expected her to offer something else a shortcut. A lifeline. A rescue wrapped in politeness. But Maya had stopped giving away unpaid labor. Not out of spite. Out of strategy. By 2:00 p.m., 2 other teams were looped in trying to salvage the client presentation. The slide deck Ethan sent was riddled with misaligned branding and outdated metrics. Barnes & Hill postponed the call, unhappy, but still polite for now. In the break room, whispers began. Did you hear about the client mess? I thought Ethan was killing it. Didn't Maya used to run that account? She overheard it all while stirring almond milk into her coffee. She didn't correct them, didn't add her voice to the mix. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is let the system reveal itself. Let them see what happens when they subtract you. And Maya, she was subtracting. Not noisily, not bitterly, but with the quiet precision of someone who's learned, if they won't credit your contribution, then let them feel your absence. Ethan always walked like the hallway belonged to him. Long strides, blazer unbuttoned, coffee in hand like a prop from a startup brochure. But by Wednesday, the rhythm of his steps had changed stiffer, sharper, less certain. The Barnes & Hill debacle was still unraveling. A second call had been rescheduled. The client requested more consistent alignment and communication, which was corporate speak for we're losing faith. And now Caldwell was watching. Ethan tried to compensate. He scheduled back-to-back stand-ups, circulated motivational quotes on Slack. He even started copying Maya on more emails again casually, like they were always collaborating. She replied when required, brief, accurate, but nothing more. And when she wasn't required, she said nothing. Not out of malice, but because she had spent years building without credit, patching holes with brilliance that was renamed as team effort. And now, she was simply removing herself from the invisible scaffolding. At 10:14 a.m., Ethan gathered a team in Conference B to re-energize the project flow. Maya was invited, but no one asked her to lead. He clicked through slides, a deck clearly cobbled together overnight. The data was misaligned. The charts were pretty, but meaningless. A mid-level analyst raised a polite concern about the Q4 assumptions. Ethan brushed it off with a tight grin. We're being bold. That's the point. Maya sat 2 chairs down, quiet, still, watching. Caldwell sat in the back, arms folded. His gaze drifted to Maya more than once. She didn't return it. She took no notes. She asked no questions. But her silence spoke volumes. Because when a black woman of Maya's caliber stops engaging, people notice. They just never say it out loud. After the meeting, Lisa from HR slid next to Maya in the hallway. Everything okay? She asked, too casually. Maya turned, of course. Lisa blinked, caught off guard by the answer's smoothness. Just haven't seen you as vocal lately. Maya tilted her head. Oh, I didn't realize vocal participation was the metric now. Lisa smiled, awkward. Not at all, of course not. We just value your insights. Maya nodded once, then walked away, each step deliberate, each silence earned. By noon, the rumor mill had shifted. Is Maya pulling back? She used to be the glue. I heard the client asked for her directly. Caldwell said no. But Maya didn't feed the whispers. She didn't correct the timeline. She didn't grab back the credit. Because what they were witnessing wasn't a mistake. It was a mirror. And in that mirror, they were starting to see the cost of treating excellence like it was disposable. By Thursday, Caldwell called her in. The invite appeared in her calendar at 8:01 a.m. Subject line check-in, just a quick chat. That was how they did it, not with confrontation, with concern. His office was cooler than usual, lit by indirect light and faux sincerity. The city skyline shimmered behind him like a distraction. "Maya," he said, standing to shake her hand, too warmly. "Thanks for making time." She nodded, took the seat across from him, back straight, calm. He leaned forward, elbows on the desk like they were teammates again. "Listen, I've noticed a shift from you. A beat, then another. I don't mean to pry, just you've been quieter lately, less engaged. Some folks even said you seemed withdrawn." Maya let the words hang, watched them float like ash before letting them fall. "I've been observing," she said, measured, trying to understand what's valued here, what sticks, what fades. Caldwell hesitated, his practiced smile flickering for half a breath. "That's fair. Look, I know the transition of leadership can feel uneven. I want you to know, your contributions haven't gone unnoticed." She didn't respond. Not because it wasn't tempting to ask, then why wasn't I chosen? But because the question itself was too small. So she waited, let him fill the space. "I've been thinking," he continued, "maybe it's time to revisit some things. There might be an opening on the Horizon Initiative project. Strategic, visible work. A chance to, reassert your presence." Reassert, as if she'd lost it. She met his eyes. No anger. No smile. Just the kind of gaze that comes from someone who has learned the weight of restraint. "I'm exactly where I need to be," she said softly. It was not defiance, it was declaration. Caldwell blinked. Because for the first time, she wasn't asking for a seat. She wasn't auditioning. She wasn't even playing. She was watching. And it unsettled him. Because there's nothing more destabilizing to a man like Caldwell than a black woman who has nothing left to prove. She stood, thanked him for the time, did not ask about Horizon, did not extend the meeting, did not perform gratitude. And when she left, Caldwell sat in the stillness. She left behind a silence that wasn't passive, but deliberately constructed. Not an absence, a boundary. The room was off balance. No one said it, but they all felt it, that subtle misalignment in energy, like a dinner table with one leg just slightly too short. Meetings ran longer now. Notes went missing. A sense of friction hovered just beneath the professional veneer. People showed up on time but left more confused than when they arrived. It wasn't chaos, not yet, just an unease. Maya saw it all from her desk, the disjointed email chains, the duplicated tasks, the quiet finger-pointing. She watched as Ethan tried to herd directionless conversations. He spoke in buzzwords and projected confidence, but the ground beneath him had started to shift. Without her, Anya, the intern, stopped by Maya's desk with cautious steps. "They've got me working on the Barnes brief now," she said. Her voice pitched low. No real guidance. Just vibes. Maya smiled faintly. "What's your instinct say?" Anya hesitated, that we're off course. Maya nodded, then trust that. She didn't offer to fix it, didn't offer to step in. Because this moment was necessary. Let the room feel what it was like when competence was treated as background noise, and then silenced. Let them sense the imbalance. Let them realize the glue had never been policy. The rhythm had never been the system. It had been her, not in the spotlight, not with a title, but in the margins, precise, consistent, holding it all together with invisible threads. And now that thread had been withdrawn. Across the floor, Caldwell paced more often. He asked more questions. His voice rose in meetings when clarity didn't arrive on cue, when numbers didn't match, when timelines stretched beyond comfort. He glanced at Maya once mid-meeting like she was still the answer. But she didn't move, didn't nod, didn't offer a solution. Instead, she turned her notebook to a blank page and began sketching a new idea, not for them. For herself. Because Maya had begun to dream again, not of promotions handed down, but of structures rebuilt. From scratch, on her terms. And as the room continued to tilt, Maya remained perfectly still. Balanced, unshaken, unbought. It hit at 3:12 p.m. on a Thursday. A sudden email chain urgent, flagged red zipped across inboxes. The Barnes & Hill project had gone live with the wrong numbers. Ethan had approved the visuals without cross-checking the data. A 2.7% market forecast had somehow become 27%. The client noticed. The damage was already public. The tone of their email clipped. Cold. Final. The office pulsed with quiet panic. Shoes tapped faster against tile. Doors closed more often. Ethan disappeared into a conference room with Lisa and Caldwell for 32 minutes. When he emerged, his face was pale, jaw tight. At 4:03 p.m., Maya's phone rang. Caldwell. She let it ring twice, then answered. Hi, Maya. Can we speak for a moment, privately? She didn't sigh, didn't smile. Sure. Inside his office, the air was heavy. The blinds were half-drawn, an instinctive act, like shielding weakness. We're in a difficult spot. Caldwell began. The Barnes team is not pleased. Maya nodded once. We're hoping to regroup, fix what we can by tomorrow, but we're short on hands. Ethan's team's stretched. He didn't say broken, but the word hovered between them. Finally, he added, your insight would be invaluable. It wasn't a command, not a request either. It was a white flag. Maya met his gaze, calm, present, undeterred. I'm happy to help, she said, but I'll need some clarity first. He raised a brow. Clarity on role, on credit, and on boundaries. She continued, if I'm stepping in, I'm not ghostwriting success. Caldwell blinked. She wasn't angry. She wasn't loud. She was exact. I'd also like my original strategic proposal reinstated, the one shelved 3 months ago, with proper attribution. He opened his mouth, a reflexive no likely forming. But Maya tilted her head, just slightly. Not a threat. Not a plea. Just a quiet declaration of worth. And Caldwell, man of systems, of metrics, of optics, saw something he hadn't seen before. Not a high performer. A leader. He nodded, slowly. You'll have what you need. She rose, shook his hand once, and left without looking back. Outside, the office still hummed in chaos. But as Maya walked through it, the noise faded. She wasn't returning to save them. She was returning to set terms. And that, in itself, was the shift. No longer just a name on the spreadsheet. She was now the author of its revision. The room didn't change for her, but the temperature did. Maya stepped into the main strategy war room at 8:02 a.m. sharp, not a minute early, not a second late. Her heels echoed soft but precise across the floor. Caldwell was already seated. Ethan was there too, head bowed over his laptop, avoiding eye contact. No one told her where to sit, so she chose the seat at the head of the table. A quiet gasp fluttered from someone near the window. No one objected. Maya opened her laptop, unhurried. The table stiffened around her, like a body trying not to shiver. But Maya didn't look up. She didn't need the tension to validate her presence. She brought her own gravity. Caldwell cleared his throat. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Maya will be leading this morning's recalibration review. Just like that. Leading. No committee, no warm-up, no co-presenter. Maya lifted her gaze, scanning the room, not daring them, not daring anyone, just seeing them, one by one. She clicked the remote. A new deck appeared on the screen, clean, sharp, structured like architecture. It was her framework, her voice. This presentation will walk through the revised projection schema, she began. You'll notice it differs significantly from the previous model. No one moved. It differs because accuracy matters, because perception matters, and because this, she pointed at the screen, is not just about fixing a number. It's about rebuilding trust. There it was. Not anger, not revenge, restoration, with terms. She moved through the slides data, strategy, solutions like a composer guiding a string quartet. Clear, unapologetic, alive. Caldwell nodded. Ethan sat very still. Maya paused mid-slide and added, for full transparency, this framework was developed 3 months ago. The original proposal is documented in my internal memo, time-stamped March 17th. Her voice didn't waver. And just for record-keeping, she continued, I'll be listed as strategic lead on this phase of the project, retroactively and forward. No one objected, because there was no room left for doubt. Maya wasn't here to be rediscovered. She wasn't a fallback plan. She was the recalibration. When the presentation ended, there was a beat of silence. No one clapped, not because it wasn't excellent, but because clapping would have acknowledged a shift they weren't ready to admit. Maya closed her laptop and stood. The room watched her, not with pity, not with discomfort, but with recognition. The kind of recognition that comes not when someone raises their voice, but when they sit at the table like it was always theirs. Maya didn't walk faster. She walked differently. There was no rush in her steps, no need to prove she deserved the air she breathed. Her calendar no longer overflowed with check-ins she didn't request, or team syncs that used her insight without naming her. She had begun to edit her existence. The first to go were the silent rescues, the late-night replies, the quiet fixes, the rewording of other people's weak ideas to make them client-ready. Gone. She wasn't cold, she was clear. And clarity had a way of unnerving people far more than confrontation ever could. It started small. A Slack message from Ethan. Hey, just wondering if you could take a quick look at this draft before I send. Maya typed slowly. I'm confident you'll figure it out. Then she closed the thread. In the past, she might have softened it, added a smiley. A hope this helps. But now she chose precision over pleasantry. She wasn't rude, she just refused to shrink. Later that week, Anya the intern stopped by again, this time holding a notepad full of notes and eyes full of questions. I don't want to mess this up, she said. I feel like I'm not supposed to be here. Maya paused, looked up. You are, she said, but you'll need to learn to take space. No one's going to hand it to you. Anya nodded, but Maya leaned forward. And don't mistake silence for permission, especially mine. Anya's eyes widened, not in fear, but in understanding. Because this wasn't just mentorship, it was blueprint. Maya was no longer fixing systems behind the scenes. She was selecting which systems deserved her energy. She redrew project scopes, assigned roles not based on politics, but on merit and care. And when Caldwell sent over a suggestion thinly disguised as a directive, she replied with a bullet point memo. Thanks. Here's what will actually happen. She wasn't waiting for permission to lead. She was leading. And people noticed again. But this time, they didn't whisper, "Why is she so cold?" They asked themselves, "How did we ever run this without her?" Because Maya wasn't stepping back in line. She was writing a new line. And for the first time in a long time, the narrative had her name at the top. It wasn't dramatic. No confessions, no sudden apologies, just subtle repositioning. People who once cut her off mid-sentence now paused when she inhaled. Colleagues who never invited her to post-meeting debriefs now lingered near her desk, offering just thought you'd want to loop in. The shift was gravitational. Even Caldwell adjusted, asking instead of assuming, rephrasing his tone into one that sounded like listening. Ethan, though, was the most obvious. He stopped trying to lead without backup, began echoing Maya's points in meetings again, but this time, citing her by name. Actually, Maya mentioned this in her framework doc. It wasn't flattery, it was survival. But Maya didn't respond with warmth or coldness. She responded with boundaries. She didn't block people out. She just didn't let them in beyond the perimeter she chose. And that, too, was unsettling, especially for those used to proximity as entitlement. She took longer walks between meetings, ate lunch in the quiet corner near the window instead of at her desk. She didn't avoid people. She just gave herself first access to her time. At 2:11 p.m. on a Wednesday, Lisa from HR stopped by again, this time with a curated smile and a printed offer for Maya to co-lead an internal equity initiative. It would really reflect the values we're trying to center, Lisa said. Maya took the paper, scanned it. Co-lead with Ethan. She looked up. I've already been leading equity, silently, for years. Lisa blinked. Maya folded the paper neatly. I don't need a title to do the work, and I won't share a platform with someone who just learned how to pronounce inclusion. The silence after was clean, not cruel. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't name every microaggression, every time she was erased. She simply drew a line and stood behind it. Because some invitations are not opportunities, they're optics. And Maya no longer played the role of decorative diversity. Now, she was a force. Not loud, not central in every conversation, but unignorable. People began to orbit around her, not to control her, but to stay within reach. And Maya, she stayed steady. Because once you become the center of gravity, you no longer chase the room. You shape its motion. The email was glowing. Subject, Spotlight of the Month, Maya Thompson. Her photo was at the top, cropped too close, overexposed. Below it, a paragraph written in the style of a brand campaign. We celebrate Maya for her grace under pressure, her tireless support during recent transitions, and her unwavering professionalism in the face of challenge. No mention of leadership, no mention of strategy, just grace, tireless, unwavering. She stared at the words for a long time, then quietly closed the tab. She didn't reply. Didn't forward it to her mother like she might have 2 years ago. Didn't even mention it in the meeting that followed. Because Maya had learned the language of soft praise. She had learned that grace often meant, you didn't make us uncomfortable. That tireless meant, you didn't say no. That professionalism meant, you swallowed everything we served, and smiled. And she was done clapping for crumbs. That afternoon, Lisa from HR stopped by with a soft smile and the office plant she reserved for spotlight winners, a peace lily in a ceramic pot. Maya looked at it, then at Lisa. It's lovely, she said, but I'd like my recognition to come with equity, not ceramics. Lisa blinked. Sorry. Maya folded her hands. You know what I did. You know what I led. And you know the metrics I turned around. I do, Lisa said. That's why we wanted to highlight. No, Maya said gently. You wanted to pacify? There was no venom in her voice, no performance. Just truth laid down like a smooth stone. Lisa fumbled. We thought you'd want to be seen. Maya stood. Her expression was soft, but solid. I've always been seen. What I want is to be valued. She handed the peace lily back, with both hands, carefully, then returned to her desk, not shaken, not bruised, just resolved. Later that day, she updated her LinkedIn headline. Not with job titles, not with buzzwords, but with one sentence. I design systems that won't need fixing later. No applause needed, no spotlight required. Maya had stopped performing for acknowledgement. She now moved only for alignment. Because when you're no longer building for their claps, you begin building for your freedom. It started with a Google Doc. No announcement, no calendar invite, no formal memo. Just a file titled What We Could Be. Maya wrote in it late at night, after the noise had died, after the glass doors reflected only the city lights and her silhouette. It wasn't a complaint. It wasn't a manifesto. It was a map. In it, she outlined workflows that protected emotional labor, meeting structures that actually valued listening, promotion criteria based on impact, not proximity to power. There were no logos, no slogans, just systems lean, ethical, clear. And slowly she began to test them. She called it piloting. The leadership called it initiative. But it wasn't either. It was liberation, by design. She started small. She built a mentorship circle, not the official kind with glossy PDFs and canned talking points, but one held over lunch in the side conference room, where new hires could breathe, ask, fumble. No one took minutes, but people left with clarity. Anya showed up every Thursday, notebook in hand. One day, she brought another intern, then another. Soon, the circle grew. People came not for answers, but for space. Meanwhile, Maya rewrote templates, project briefs, performance feedback, client pitches. She removed jargon that excluded. She restored clarity where spin had grown thick. Each time she shared a new version, no one objected. In fact, they began to copy her format, quietly, internally, like gospel passed in whispers. Maya didn't claim credit. She didn't seek validation, because she understood something most didn't. The most lasting architecture is invisible. Like the beams inside the walls, like the hands that built the bridge no one names. And though Caldwell still ran all staff meetings, people started quoting her frameworks. Though Ethan still carried the title, his proposals began echoing her language softer, cleaner, more just. No attribution, but also no resistance. Because the old system was still standing, technically, but its gravity had changed. And Maya, she kept writing, kept teaching, kept designing for a world that might never say thank you but would quietly last longer because of her. It came at 7:46 p.m. on a Friday. The office had long emptied, the lights had dimmed to their evening hush. Maya was alone, laptop open, headphones in, sifting through timelines and tiered budgets. Then a ping. "Hi, Ms. Thompson. You don't know me yet. I just joined last month. My name's Zuri. I'm in data ops." Maya paused, hovered. "I wanted to say thank you. I watched your presentation last week on the Barnes pivot. I've never seen someone speak like that in a room like that, and be listened to. It meant more than I can explain." She reread it, once, twice. Zuri's profile photo was small, a soft face, dark skin, hair in twists, 20-something, maybe. A name Maya had never seen in any email loop. "I've been scared, honestly. Thought I had to become smaller to stay. But then I saw you, and I started thinking maybe I could stay and still be me." There it was. Not applause, not promotion, but proof. Proof that something had landed. That even in a place built to erase something had taken root. Maya sat back, let the words wash over her. She remembered her first year, the silence, the nods that meant nothing, the invisible corrections, the loud erasures, the subtle, constant rearranging of her worth. And no one not once had said, "I see you, and it helps me stay." So she replied, not immediately, not hastily, but with care. "Zuri, thank you. I see you now, and I'm glad you're here. Don't shrink. Learn the systems, then outgrow them. You're not alone." She clicked send. Then, for the first time that week, she closed her laptop before 8, tucked her notebook into her bag, took the long way out through the empty corridor quiet and clean, like a cathedral built from time. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was walking alone. Because when Maya stepped into rooms now, she didn't just carry her work, she carried witnesses. And one by one, they were finding their voice because she had held hers. The offer came on a Monday morning, subject line opportunity to lead change. It was from a firm 3 floors above, sleeker, flashier, louder. A place where diversity was framed in gold, where equity had a budget and a marketing campaign. They wanted Maya to spearhead transformation, VP title, corner office, a team, and a salary that made her pause. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she went on her usual 10:17 a.m. walk past the plants no one watered, passed the framed mission statement that meant less each quarter. Her heels clicked, steady, as she passed people who now nodded first. When she returned, the offer email sat unread. Not because she didn't feel flattered, but because she had built something slow and uncelebrated that the offer didn't see. This wasn't just about her anymore. The frameworks she seeded were being replicated. Her vocabulary had shifted team culture. Anya now ran a briefing session for new interns using Maya's notes. Zuri had submitted a proposal with her own name on the cover page. The space was becoming inhabitable, not just tolerable. And for once, Maya didn't want to leave before the fruit arrived. She wanted to stay for the part black women often miss, not the fix, but the legacy. At 4:03 p.m., she replied, "Thank you for thinking of me. I'm honored, but I'm not looking to lead transformation somewhere new. I'm already building one here in quieter ways, and on my terms." She didn't hit send and regret it. She didn't wonder if she'd wasted a step. Because Maya no longer measured her value by velocity. She measured it by alignment. That night, she stayed late not out of obligation, but desire. She opened a new tab in the same Google Doc she had titled, "What We Could Be." She renamed it. Now it read, "What We Are Becoming." Because this was no longer just blueprint. It was becoming real. And Maya, she was no longer asking what kind of seat she deserved at the table. She was quietly sketching a new table altogether. Not louder, not flashier, but solid. Built to last. They never told her. Not in so many words. Not in the hallway. Not with grand gestures or company-wide emails. But they talked about her in the small spaces where truth slips through. In the bathroom between meetings, where two women of color whispered, "Did you see how she responded to that VP last week? She didn't even blink." In the elevator, where a quiet junior designer once told Anya, "I use her template for all my briefs now. It's just clearer. I didn't even know we were allowed to write like that." In Slack threads, where her phrasing, "Let's realign expectations" or "clarifying scope so we don't perform labor without ownership," had become unofficial mantras, repeated with reverence and intention. Maya never asked to be a model. She simply moved with integrity, unflinching, grounded, precise. And people, especially the ones who had never been given permission to take up space, noticed. Because she never once said, "This is how you do it." She just did it. Over and over, unapologetically, without asking the room if it was okay first. In the back row of a diversity workshop, a young black man in his first year at the company texted his sister, "There's this woman here, Maya. She doesn't smile for approval. She speaks like she knows her words are furniture necessary and placed with care." His sister replied, "Sounds like the kind of black woman they try to ignore, until they need her." He smiled, because she was right. And she wasn't just being watched. She was being studied. There were files saved under names like Maya's deck format and tone like Maya's. Interns passed around links to her past presentations the way students swap playlists. And one young Latina coordinator had printed a screenshot of Maya's LinkedIn bio and taped it inside her planner. "I design systems that won't need fixing later." Those weren't just words. They were architecture. They were a blueprint for how to exist in spaces not built for you and not just survive, but reshape the angles. And Maya, she didn't know, not fully. Because real ripples aren't always visible from the center. They unfold in widening circles, quiet, certain, and unstoppable. The meeting was on the 13th floor, the one with the cold coffee and newer chairs. It was a leadership roundtable, hosted quarterly. Ethan was there. Caldwell, too. Lisa from HR, legs crossed and voice polished. The topic, defining leadership for the next phase. Maya was not in the room. She hadn't been invited. Not because they didn't want her insight, but because, for once, they assumed she might be too busy. Funny how power rewrites assumptions. 10 minutes in, someone said it. "Honestly, I think we need more Mayas." It hung in the air like incense sweet, surprising, undeniable. No one laughed. No one questioned who she was. Instead, Lisa nodded, I've been observing her structure. Her mentorship ripple is visible. Even the interns mirror her tone. Ethan, once too proud to borrow, added, her frameworks get adopted almost organically now. It's like she anticipates the breakdown before it happens. Caldwell stayed silent, but he didn't disagree. Someone from finance raised a brow. Why haven't we tapped her for more strategic alignment? Lisa gave a measured answer. She's been tapped, quietly, and she's chosen what to own. She curates her labor. Curates, like art, like something valuable and finite. It was the first time Maya's boundaries were spoken of with reverence instead of resentment. They shifted the slide deck forward, talking leadership models, retention, innovation. But every few slides, her name returned. Not as filler, not as a checkbox, but as evidence. As standard, not because she was exceptional though she was, but because her way of being proved that another way was possible. They didn't say it aloud, but each person in that room had, at some point, borrowed from her a phrase, a process, a pause. And now, in her absence, they knew what had changed. Maya didn't lead with noise. She didn't command the room. She reframed it. So when someone said, we should ask Maya how she'd approach this, there was no dissent. It was already understood, even when she wasn't there. She was there. Because some names, once spoken with weight, don't leave rooms. They shape them. The hallway was nothing special. Just recycled air and framed stock photos of collaboration hands, charts, a blurry high five. Still, when Maya turned the corner that afternoon, the space shifted. It always did, but this time, they noticed. Ethan was speaking to two directors near the elevator when he paused mid-sentence. His eyes flicked toward her not in fear, not in deference, but in adjustment. As if the meter had changed in the music. She wasn't hurrying, didn't nod, didn't smile. Her posture was calm, measured. And yet people stepped aside. Not dramatically, not out of guilt or shame, but the way one steps aside for a procession. It wasn't that Maya had become untouchable. It was that she had become unmistakable. Someone whispered as she passed, soft enough not to be heard, loud enough to be felt. That's Maya Thompson. Not a question, not curiosity, just fact. She didn't need to wear her title, didn't need the lanyard or the laminated badge. Her authority wasn't granted, it was built. In every line of code she had cleaned, in every deck she had rebuilt from scraps, in every sentence she had refused to soften for their comfort. They'd seen her sit at the edge of rooms and still anchor them. They'd watched her turn silence into rebuttal, and clarity into command. So now, when she walked past, they didn't just see a woman who had risen. They saw a mirror, one that reflected what they had missed, what they had dismissed, what they could no longer unsee. The new hires straightened when she walked by, not from fear, from recognition, the kind of recognition that came from watching someone survive, then decide not just to stay, but to shape. When she reached the glass doors at the end of the corridor, she paused, looked back briefly, not at anyone in particular, just at the room. And in that second, no one spoke. Because it wasn't about what she would say. It was about what her presence already had. A reordering, a rebalancing, a before and after. Maya turned, walked through the door. And no one, not Ethan, not Caldwell, not Lisa, could pretend the hallway felt the same. Because when a black woman decides not to shrink, when she claims her space with no announcement, you can't unsee the space she made real. It wasn't in the news, no all-staff email, no cake, no farewell card passed around with half-hearted signatures. Just an empty desk on a Monday morning. Maya didn't leave a note. She didn't owe one. Because people who build quietly don't exit with noise. They exit with imprint. It had been coming for weeks. The files were cleaned, the mentorship circle handed to Anya without fuss, with clarity. The Google Docs were still there, shared and annotated, but her cursor hadn't blinked on them in days. Even her chair, the one by the corner window, had begun to sit straighter, like it knew its season of holding weight was over. She had walked out on a Thursday. At 6:12 p.m., no packed box, just her notebook, a scarf, and the same steady gait she entered with years ago, only this time unburdened. No one saw it, not really. They were still inside meeting rooms, arguing over metrics Maya had already simplified 6 months ago. Still editing slides in formats she had designed, still quoting her phrases half knowing, half forgetting their origin. She didn't take her legacy with her. She left it behind. That was the point. People kept asking, days later, softly, uncertainly. Did Maya transfer teams? Is she on sabbatical? Maybe she's just working remotely. But no email bounced, no out-of-office auto-reply, just silence. A full, unapologetic silence. The kind that comes after something complete. When Ethan found out for real, it was from Anya. She told him gently, but without fanfare. She's gone. He blinked. Gone where? Forward, Anya said. I think that's the only direction she moves in. And with that, the office felt different. Not emptier, but aware. As though the walls themselves had shifted to remember her steps. As though the air, the systems, the rhythm still carried her fingerprints. Because Maya didn't just leave. She concluded. And conclusions don't beg to be understood. They just hold their shape. The office did not crumble when Maya left. There were no panicked emails, no scrambling, but slowly, subtly, people noticed what had shifted and what had stayed. Monday's client pitch went smoother than usual. Someone asked, "Who formatted these slides?" Anya answered, "They're from Maya's playbook." The team nodded. No edits needed. Later that week, in a junior training, a fresh associate mentioned how helpful the impact over optics memo was. He didn't know Maya wrote it. Didn't know she had once rewritten that entire evaluation system after quietly watching how praise was weaponized against potential. But still her fingerprints were there, smoothed into the grain of the table. Lisa from HR reread the onboarding framework Maya once challenged line by line. She didn't delete Maya's edits. She expanded on them. "We never asked her to fix it all," someone murmured. "No," Lisa said. "She didn't ask. She just did." Even Ethan, who once saw Maya as competition, found himself pausing mid-sentence in meetings, asking, "Is this Maya's format?" before speaking over it. He didn't say it with bitterness anymore. He said it with respect. Because something about the place felt more honest now. Meetings had more pause between thoughts. Emails were less padded with defensiveness. Feedback came cleaner, sooner, and with less fear. And no one was clocking it consciously, but somehow, the culture had tilted. Not entirely, but just enough to feel breathable. And in that breath was Maya. Not in name, not in photograph, but in posture, in practice, in the refusal to accept this is just how it's done as a sacred rule. Anya, now leading her own mentorship lunch circle, looked around the room of bright, questioning faces. They asked her how she got confident enough to speak up. She smiled and simply said, "I watched someone who didn't flinch, so I stopped flinching." That was it. No fanfare, no foundation named in Maya's honor. Just a ripple-made system. Just a woman who planted seeds and trusted the ground. The new space was smaller. Not less, just closer to breath. Maya sat by the window of a quiet co-working loft in the city's East End. No skyline, just red bricks, ivy, and sun that didn't ask for permission before pouring in. Her desk had no nameplate. Her inbox held no corporate memo. And yet there was purpose in the air. A knock on her open door. A young woman, nervous, brown skin, a notepad pressed to her chest like a heartbeat. "Hi. You're Maya." "Right." Maya looked up. She didn't smile to soften, just met the girl's eyes with presence. "I'm Amira," the woman continued. "I read something you wrote once about how systems should make space, not just rules. I think about that every time I write a policy now." Maya nodded slowly, and Amira hesitated. "I guess I just wanted to say it matters." Maya didn't say thank you. She said, "Good. Now go make it matter somewhere else." Amira grinned and left. The door closed with the quiet confidence of something just beginning. Maya leaned back. She wasn't building an empire, wasn't chasing press or panels. She was designing rooms that didn't require her presence to function with integrity. Somewhere across the city, someone quoted her in a strategy doc. Somewhere in another state, a woman forwarded Maya's old pitch structure to her team. And somewhere back at that old office, the mentorship circle still met on Thursdays. Maya no longer needed to be remembered, because she had been absorbed. Not as myth, but as method. Not as icon, but as infrastructure. The camera wouldn't follow her anymore. The spotlight had shifted. And that finally was freedom. Because when a black woman builds quietly, holds her ground without spectacle, and leaves before they ask for more than she came to give, she doesn't vanish. She multiplies. In every woman who stops apologizing before she speaks. In every template that centers clarity over compliance. In every office that breathes a little easier because someone once refused to perform. Maya walked to the window. The sun caught her shoulder, and in that light, she wasn't a symbol. She was a source, still, gone, and everywhere. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Every click helps us bring more powerful stories of empathy, justice, and silent strength to life. Your support is what fuels this journey. Let's keep standing together and rising higher, one story at a time. Stay safe and inspired.